Well, hello, and welcome back to Cawville. Had the most wonderful recharge, refresh trip, came back, and the world is not healed yet. What? How is that possible that we're still in the thick of the psyops and the lyops and the bullshit? Well, it's because people still believe it, I guess. I haven't for a very long time. You know, it's a friend recently is like, how have you carried all this for so long on your own? That must have been so hard. And it was one of the most empathetic things anyone's ever said to me. Because, yeah, that part, it was not okay. It will never be okay, what they did and who they are and how they choose to be so evil, condescending, abrasive, obnoxious, hypocritical, and just, diabolical. That's it. And that's all. It's a fever dream. It is. It's a coma. We're waking up out of a fever dream in a coma. And there is no spoon, but there are pedophiles, Why do you always talk about it so much? Why can't you just let it go? They're not, hurting you directly. They're, just scared that you're going to out them, and they're lashing out and crashing out like you did when you were under their pressure. Well, I'm still under their pressure, even though I side-eye it and roll my eyes and laugh it off, mostly because they're chicken shit and they're cowards. And if I could, I just can't respect that, right? Like I cannot, respect the tactics or the methods or the cruelty and the cowardice combined that just tries to find new avenues and new ways to project and darvo you. And I had a client yesterday, and she's getting away from her abusive boyfriend, and then another lady is getting away from her abusive husband. And I'm just thrilled that these women are waking up across the globe. It is like a mass awakening and a mass exodus from, a slavery situation that we have called marriage. And I'm not anti-marriage, I'm just anti-bad marriages, right? And men who mistreat their wives. There are plenty of good men who know how to treat a woman properly and who are actual gentlemen and who don't do the Jekyll Hyde thing or the hot and cold thing or the wishy-washy inconsistent thing. Men who are solid, men who are real, and men who are loving, and men who are good family men. Are they perfect? No. But they learn and they grow and they go get therapy, and they're not in arrogance or denial about their flaws. They face them head on, like you would, tackle someone in a football game. They tackle their issues like you would deal with an addiction. They get sober, and then they become better men. And those are the men we want to, encourage and uplift. We don't want anything to do with men who hurt women and children, like whatsoever, on any level. That goes all the way to porn, because porn is deeply tied to human trafficking. And it isn't just like a problem of a man who's not getting his needs met, because that's a lame fucking excuse, in my opinion. It is a conditioned thing. It's misogyny thing, for sure. It's exploitation. Like I remember hearing one of these broadcast idiots just as I was scrolling through saying, well, yeah, like that person on the poll or the OnlyFans person or, the sex worker I had, delivered to my house like a pizza, pun intended, probably was raped by their uncle at 11, but I don't want to think about that. And I know you don't, because then you'd have to deal with the monster inside you, the beast who just wants to get your rocks off and just wants to have fun at someone else's pain. That's the sadist in them. They are condescending, they are arrogant, they are more than abrasive, they are more than obnoxious, they are more than cruel, more than evil. There aren't even words in the English language or in any language to capture or encapsulate how slimy and grimy they are. So, am I just going to keep talking about this forever and never heal? No, this is how I heal, by talking about it. And the people can hear me, and the people who can't or who want to deflect or deny or change a subject or defend any of these people, are just not welcome in my world anymore. And that's a hard boundary, and it's one I've come to over time and through a lot of pain. So No Pain No Gain is never a program I resonated to. I think that's a lie, like a lot of lies they sell us about aging and our weight, and that's so insidious and it's so pedophilic. They want hairless, tight bodied, you know. They want you to be a blow up doll. That's what they want, someone who doesn't talk back, someone they can just stick it in whenever they want. And I mean, like, I can admit I have a high libido when I'm in love and when I'm with someone who I feel is a safe person. And it's been a long time for me, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm dipping a toe back in, getting back on the horse, the bicycle, whatever the metaphors are for dating. And it's really bleak sometimes, but maybe needle in the haystack. You figure there's 1 out of 8 billion who's not a complete satanic, woman-hating, self-hating asshole. They've got to be out there. I'm just, weary and leery of anyone who wants to write lyrics before they meet me. That's not a thing anymore. That's not happening. That's not okay. That's a violation. That's like sticking someone in a jar with no air holes, Just not cool. Not love at all. Just someone, mentally masturbating with their own projections and fantasies and pedestals. And I always say when there's a pedestal, there's a pitchfork not be far behind. So watch out for the pedestals, right? So I am thrilled lately that the conversation is changing, despite the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, weird psyop to distract you from the actual issue of harassment and domestic violence, because they were cosplaying, because they're inverted and they're liars. And their legal battle is a Masonic, distraction from the Epstein stuff. And the Epstein, like, there are many Epsteins, many islands, and many pimps, many handlers, many, gigolos and beta kitties who all think sex magic makes them special when really it makes them pathetic, because that's not how it goes. You don't want to, sex is its own magic, right? And whether people are fucking or making love, or whether they're abstaining and being in celibacy, like mostly I have, then, they just learn your energy, learn how you attach in that way. And I don't just mean like psychological labels for that, like, anxious attachment, whatever, like, whatever that stuff is. Avoid it. I'm probably a happy avoidant because I avoid the bullshit, and I only want to be with someone who reminds me, in a safety way, of like my high school boyfriend who unfortunately died when he was 30. We weren't together anymore, but yeah, he was the safest one I can remember. So he's a kind of a blueprint. And if I don't feel as good around someone's energy as I did around his, then I'm just not interested. That's my barometer. You should be checking in with not just your heart or your brain, take them with you, but with your belly. If your belly is relaxed around a man, then he's someone you would want to maybe get to know better. If something feels tight and weird in your stomach as you watch them or listen to them, or maybe they even pop up randomly in your dreams or something, and you're just like, oh, you're weird and cheap in my dream, and that's kind of the impression I had of you in real life, and I don't want anything to do with those energies, So, yeah, your subconscious is always talking to you, and your somatic system is always talking to you. So we've been trained out of listening to these things, and we've literally been numbing them out and medicating them, and I've been on that roller coaster and, ride myself. And when you get clear, and when you and mostly sober, even if you're California sober and whatever, then you just see it from a distance, right? Like that song, from a distance you look like my friend, even though we are at war. Oh yeah, it's a war, isn't it? But the opposite of war is raw. So when you can get raw and real, even with yourself, or especially with yourself, you can see through the illusion, and you can go through that disappointment, heartbreak of, wow, none of it was real. Nothing they say or do is real, because they can't come direct, correct, or with respect. That's what I always said. If you can't do those things, then stay away. And so luckily there was some kind of divine protection that kept people who had the wrong intentions towards me out of my life. And I really am always grateful for that. Whether I'm related to them or whether I, encounter them in the world or don't, whether it's just like from a distance, like the song says, or from afar, I'm grateful that nobody can really be in my presence who isn't meant to be. I think that's a protection. And they do say rejection is redirection and protection. And I fully, fully get that now. It just used to be sort of a meme or a clever cliche, but now it's like a way of life, right? If you're rejected from anything ever, it is not for you. If you put your energy out there and it is not reciprocated, it is not for you. If you, and I don't even like the words like chase, like nobody chases anybody. Like we might be chasing a feeling or a sort of a nostalgia idea of what romance we were sold that it was or could be. But, I don't know. Nobody can really reject you. You can only reject yourself, right? And you can reject creator and you can reject the divine plan. And it doesn't go well when people do that. Like it really doesn't go well. Yet they persist in banging their head against that same wall, that never got built. Or, I heard the expression yesterday, hit the wall. As far as a woman that's aging, I'm like, okay, well, then I'll hit the wall. That's fine. That's fine. I'll hit the wall. Because when you're younger, God, from 9 onward, men are just gross. And they were calling the house, asking what color my underwear was, and deep breathing into the phone. And it's just like, we had an unlisted number at one point because my dad used to get bomb threats because he was an assistant superintendent of schools in Boston, and that was during desegregation and the busing stuff. Like, think about it. There was desegregation. They had to call it desegregation. It's like, and wouldn't that be integration? And I don't know. It's astonishing to me. We haven't come that far, even in my, lifetime, as far as racism, as far as feminism or feminism or women's rights. Or everybody thinks women's rights is about reproductive rights. That's a minor part of it, actually. People think it's a major part. It's a minor part. And by the way, they do use abortion clinics for adrenochrome supply, so it's another consideration on that. And Planned Parenthood was formed by Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenicist and a racist who wanted to kill all the black babies. So, we might want to look at the origins of abortion and the nuances of it before we make decisions, not just based on religion or politics. We might want to look at the bigger picture on that. And I do believe life begins at conception, and that isn't a pro-life, pro-choice thing for me. It's just a logic thing for me. Like, why wouldn't it, So, anyway, we're all just clumps of cells walking each other home, I guess, right? if we can see it that way, we can find a little light in all the darkness. But yeah, I don't believe any of their lies anymore. I don't know why I ever did, except it was just shoved down our throats for so long and pummeled into us. And now once you see the elite gender inversion stuff, then if you're lying about your gender, I know you're lying about everything. I know you are incapable of truth, because that's a core basic thing that nobody should ever have to lie about, right? Like, why would you lie about that? That's pitiful and pathetic. You're not evolved or enlightened if you have to do that and try to fool people or trick them, And again, I'm never talking about the regular trans community. I'm talking about the elite practice of doing the trans thing with their kids, and they each get $20 million each time. And they do that because that's considered a sacrifice, apparently, allegedly, whatever, in my opinion, that nobody wants. I did hear from one whistleblower they're incentivized to do that, and every time they turn their son into a daughter or their daughter into a son, it's considered, I killed my daughter, I killed my son. And then they present that kid as a cosplay woman face, man face, liar. They do it to their kids. That's child abuse. That's straight up child abuse. And they get $20 million for each kid they do that for. So, it's sick and twisted. And then I was listening to an interview from some psychic super soldiers who were conditioned by the government, by MK Ultra, to commit high-level assassinations that perpetuates this war. And there's the 13 bloodlines. They're always warring. They're always fighting themselves and each other. Then there's the Khazarian side, and Israel. And then there's the Illuminati and Europe. And there's just, once you start to see the layers of the Mason onion, you just know all things go back to that. And there probably are extraterrestrials and off-war factions and things running these puppets and these demons and these aliens and these clones or whatever the heck we're dealing with here. But they're not human, right? Like, and if they have a shred of humanity, they don't lean into it. They don't care about decency or compassion or kindness or generosity. They care about winning. They care about crushing. They care about eliminating humans so they can have more for themselves. They care about greed. They are very brainwashed. They are very wrong. And their time is up. It is a new era arriving. One where people aren't going to be in lavender lies or in closets or in battle. It's going to be great, actually. I'm looking forward to it. I get kind of visions and glimpses and teases of it all the time. And we're not going to be around condescending, abrasive assholes who dismiss our pain that they created or helped cause. We're not going to do that. We're just not doing that. So they can tone police us all they want to deflect and avoid the consequences of their own actions and inactions and their own cheapness and their own grandiosity, but it doesn't work. Like, if you're holding up a mirror to someone and they're mad at the reflection, they need to go deal with that. That's not your problem. And they think they're doing that to us and showing us our weaknesses and our foibles and our, that we age and that we eat too much and we, think too much and we should wear this thing. And they're just desperate. They're desperate for attention and they're desperate for validation from outside themselves. And I get it. I was there. I understand that state of loneliness and like love hunger. I get it. But that doesn't mean you settle ever. Ever. You don't settle for someone who's, can't see you, can't encourage you, can't uplift you, can't celebrate you, can't acknowledge your existence, yet wants to, feed off you or siphon your light or dim it in some way because they're threatened and they are jealous and they are envious. And so they can't just be open or, I think I was spoiled by a dad who really praised my mom and said that she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever known, and that he was, so encouraging of anything she ever wanted to do and supportive. So, I mean, he was not a perfect man either. He had a dark streak and a violent temper, and, he could be the golden boy to the world and a zombie for us because he gave it all at the office, and then we had to redirect him to, hey, family's first, But that was all a farce too, right? Because what is family? It's the word mafia uses, the Illuminati, gangs, and we're told, to love thy family and honor thy family, but they're happy to exile you. They're happy to let you be a black sheep and a scapegoat and the identified patient and the problem child. They're happy to do that so they don't have to look at themselves, So I hope that my misfit toy friends hear this and realize that anytime you were outcast, anytime you were called that, said that you were being in reactive abuse, that's not a thing. That is not a thing. That is a lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Yeah, no, there is an abuser and there is the abuse, and that is the dynamic. And however the abused deals with the abuse is completely appropriate at that point because you've been violated, you've been, stepped on, you've been ignored, you've been obsessed over, and you are the victim. That is a thing. And you don't have to stay there. You can learn from that role of being a victim or victimized and say, well, I'm not going to let you do that to me anymore. And I don't know why I ever did, except I was scared, right? And you were scared, and our fears were dancing. But it was not slow dancing in a burning room or anything romantic. It was quite ugly, and it was quite an entanglement. And it wasn't quantum, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't uplifting, and it wasn't nourishing. It was all the opposite, draining and exhausting and frustrating and disappointing, right? So, yeah, sometimes I can be very condescending and abrasive, and I'm fine with that because that's reactive response. That is self-defense. That is holding up a mirror. That is rejecting the projections. So don't let them tone police you. Don't let them call you difficult because you refuse to be abused. Then I'll be fucking difficult, and I'll be gladly fucking difficult, nasty, persistent, whatever you want to call women who just don't let you step on them, because you're used to women who let you step on them and laugh it off, and then take career advancement moves as the reparation. That's not me. That's never going to be me. I am not money driven. I'm perfectly content with like little tchotchkes from the thrift store for like $2.99. Like you can't buy me. I'm not for sale. I can make a beautiful life on a shoestring, on a budget, and on fucking dental floss if I have to. So having millions or billions does nothing for me. It's just hoarding at that point. It's just greed. It's just a never-ending void that will never be filled. Not by Rolexes, not by fake women, not by children, not by donkeys or watermelons or whatever else you go after because you're bored and you need a new conquest, right? So yeah, they didn't like that I called them womanizer and pedophile, and that's what started this whole thing. And full circle, here we are, because they are womanizers and they are pedophiles, and they are FTMs and MTFs, and they are liars, and they are losers for Lucifer. So is that mean of me to say those things, or is it true? Might be a bit of both, but it's definitely true. So time will tell. It always does. The sun, the moon, and the truth, they all come out eventually. So as you're trying to navigate and fathom, like, what is this world? What is this place? And why are we here? Just remember that you don't eat babies and you don't rape anybody. And that if you're in that camp, you're doing okay. If you didn't cave to those weird temptations, like they have parties where they stick them in a room, gun, child, and camera. They stick a gun to their head, apparently, and they make them do stuff with kids, and they alter them with cocaine or whatever their drug of choice is, alcohol or meth or adrenochrome or some kind of cocktail of all of the above. Cocaine, pink cocaine is a thing. Probably adreno-tinted cocaine, something. So these are horrifying things, like that, they appeal to the basest, lowest, vilest, most demonic nature of these creatures who have add that with toxic ambition and brainwashing and generational trauma, and they don't have a chance. They don't have a chance to heal until they tell the truth, and none of them can tell the truth or they'll die. So they're trapped in the golden cages of their own creation, and they try to make the most and best of it like we do out here outside those cages. Do I pity them anymore? Nah, I don't. I feel sorry for their victims. I reserve my compassion for the kids that were killed on Epstein Island, because that's what happened. It wasn't just young women, or like even the victims can be a bit psyopy, really. I'm not saying people weren't victimized there. I believe they were, but I don't believe most of them are alive. So, and I believe most of them were children. So that happens, in church basements, after Super Bowls, after concerts. It happens in your neighborhood. It happens 3 doors down from you. And we got to get to a place now where we're just, I don't like we're not mad enough. Like, we're all pretty mad and disgusted and overwhelmed and shut down from it, because you get bombarded and then you get inundated and then you get, we hit the wall. They hit the wall of all the lies, the slime and the filth and the garbage of the lies, the never-ending lies and the cosplaying and the scripted garbage and the humiliation rituals and the warring factions and the covens and the sorting hat and the nonsense and the noise. You just go, okay, is that working for you? Are you happy? Because it doesn't seem like you're happy, and it doesn't seem like it's efficient, and it doesn't seem like it's working on any level except continuing to keep your ego intact and your image. And that's a really sad, sad thing. That's a desperate place to be, when your image is more important to you than your heart or your soul. So that I do pity, but I can't respect, right? I've always said you can have my pity or my respect. You cannot have both. So I think if you roll up your sleeves and you dive into a cause, if it's social justice, if it's for the betterment of humanity, you have my respect. Even if I know you may be supporting people unconsciously that do terrible things, because there is no good candidate or honest person at those upper levels. There just isn't. They wouldn't have gotten there if they were good or honest or real or decent or even human. So we're dealing with something that's a machine and that does not have a heart or a soul. It is very deliberate, very malicious, very calculated, and defensive. Oh my goodness, it's so defensive. So yeah, if you have a dream about someone and they're cheap, even in your dream, run in the other direction, find someone. Generosity and kindness are just like beautiful, maybe even rare qualities that, but probably not as rare, right? I've just had my focus and attention on the wrong things in people, and I admit that. And I can redirect that. So I hope, people will wake up. I, asked someone the other day, like they said, it can be kind of, and I've thought of this, that you can be an arrogance if you think you're supposed to wake up the whole world and that you're, on a crusade or whatever quest or, you have a savory complex. I get it. I think that's, I've had that criticism before from someone who I thought was a friend and turned out not to be. But I think if you're indifferent or apathetic or you care more about your money than you do about children getting raped 20 times a day, then there's something deeply fucked about you. And I don't want to know you. I don't care who you are or how long I did know you or how much I did care about you. Ethics is far more important to me than compromise morality. And I'm not saying I'm on a high horse or that I'm on a pedestal or that I have it all figured out or that I don't sin or fall from grace. I do all the time. And then I try to look at it and I try to sit with it and I try to see where the fear was, because where fear is, love cannot be. Where fear is, love cannot be. And I want to choose love all the time. Even if I'm choosing the love of, letting go of the fear, and that can be awkward and ugly and mean sometimes, right? But I love letting go of the fear. I love telling the truth and exposing the worms under the rock. I love the peace and freedom of that. Not that I love having to do it, but I love the outcome and how it makes me feel in my nervous system after years and years and years of satanic abuse. And so I think there's going to be a lot more awareness and people are going to wake up even more and even faster, and I don't have to do it all because I'm one person. I can do my part. And I hope you'll do yours. I hope you won't look away or change a subject when someone tries to tell you these hard things. I hope you'll listen. I think some of the best advice I get from Spirit is shut up and listen. And it isn't mean. It's stern, but it's not mean. And if you can't do that, then I don't want to hear what you have to say, right? Like, I don't want to hear the words just filling the air. And I mean, I've done it, and my nanny used to do it, and I know chatty people are nervous people. I get that. But try to calm yourself down and be available for information that maybe your soul needs, because maybe you're part of the, next wave of humanity where you need to kind of know the dark and the dirt to be able to turn it into a garden and bring in the light and the growth, right? You can't look away from it. You can't be in denial. You don't have to be inundated, but you can't be in denial. So find the sweet spot, find the middle, and always have curiosity. Always have curiosity and wisdom, desire, a desire for wisdom, not just knowledge, but wisdom. Wisdom comes from experience and knowledge comes from, knowledge comes from outside of us. I think wisdom is what comes when we transmute the knowledge we've gained. Wisdom is a higher vibration and it's a deeper experience, but most people don't want that. They just want their surface experiences. They want someone who looks good on, arm candy on the red carpet, or, or someone who looks good on paper. They don't want someone who feels right, because they're not ready for that. They're too scared of that because they're used to the other. They're used to rejection. They're used to projection. They're used to deflection. They're used to denial, and they don't want to get out of it, or they would. Because if he wanted to, he would. And that's really basic, but really true. So, yes, I am back on Match.com, seeing what's out there and trying to stay open and keep an open mind and open heart, because I do believe that it only takes one person out of 8 billion to be a life partner or the love of your life, or, the oak, the rock, the ride or die, the one who's always there when you need them, and not just because they need you to need them. That's pitiful and pathetic, but because they're not afraid of your strength. They're inspired by it, and they're empowered by it, and they're uplifted by it, and they don't have any desire to crush it or mock it or denigrate it or ignore it or minimize it in any way. Okay? Because they're solid and confident inside themselves. So they can celebrate others and not just people in their own world, but people in the whole world, right? I love that. I love complimenting someone and about something that maybe nobody ever told them, or popping a bubble of no, there's no such thing as reactive abuse. That's bullshit, right? That's more abuse heaped upon abuse, and it's deflection and Darvo, and it's not cool, and it's not okay, and it's not happening. So that's over. It's over, it's over, it's over. So you're getting serenaded with your sermon this morning. And yeah, I think the simple things are good. And when you can just bond with someone over, truth rather than lies, that's a good thing. When someone can de-mask and melt and be safe with you, and, you can be yourself, your authentic self with them, that's a beautiful thing. And I have people in my life now, thankfully, who I can be that with and who don't judge me and who aren't trying to use, abuse, exploit, manipulate, or crazy make me. So it's nice because the gaslighting faction, they can just stay with themselves and each other. I just have no use for it or time for it or energy anymore. And I'm still trying to find truth. I'm like Diogenes looking for truth, an honest man. And I'll be really happy when I find one. I believe he's out there because if I exist, he exists. And he's going to acknowledge that I exist. That's going to be baseline. Openly and proudly and joyfully. And if you can't do that, that's less than bare minimum if they can't do that. So good luck to all of us on our love journeys. I think we have to unprogram and unweave from all the programming and the bullshit and the fairy tale princess nonsense, and get real and get raw and stop the wars inside you if you want love, because they're not compatible. War and love is not compatible. All right, I've never believed in the opposites attract thing. I think like attracts like, and compatibility is important, especially for, value system and, being who you say you are, actually, and not being afraid to be real and not putting on a performance of vulnerability, but actually showing up and doing it in your everyday life, And I don't mean cry about everything all the time, and I don't mean laugh off everything all the time. I mean find, the sweet spot of, yes, it makes me very sad and very angry the way I've been mistreated and ignored and kicked around. It does. It should. But it also gave me strength. Or it showed me my strength, I should say. The strength was always there. And anyone who would try to ruin your life or, your work opportunities or your housing or your money, boy, is their karma coming like a train. And like I said yesterday, it's coming like a train and it will not be stopped. So, yeah, there we go. Long-winded way of saying the scales are tipping and the tides are turning, and I'm here for it all. Much love. Give yourself a hug today and pat yourself on the back and buy yourself some flowers. And then open your heart to the right ones and close it to the ones who only mean you harm. Bye.